I like to start right here. Okay, now this one. This is what, if we were in class, I would say, okay, now we don't have lines anymore. We have marks. Can you see the tick marks? Hopefully you can in the cameras. These are just tick marks, and you could do various things with the tick marks. The first thing I would have you do is outline the block. So you're going to get used to this. Now, I don't know if you saw what I just did. I kept my fingers on the ruler and I moved it all as one unit. Instead of walking my fingers, sliding down, whatever. I kept everything as one. That's something that you might get comfortable with doing at some point. Try it if you want to. I'm walking my fingers down here on this part because that's what feels the best to me. Oops, I overshot that one. Okay, now we're going to go up. And then over. Okay, we've outlined our block. So this is when I would have you come down here and I would have you stop the needle at the mark. Then this is where we would start our aiming skills. So if you have this ruler, which you would if you're in my class, then you could use that needle stop and figure that out. But let's say you don't have a ruler with needle stop. You have a standard straight edge. Your goal is to eye it and be a 1/4 inch away from the mark. Sometimes if you have a block, you could use other lines. Like I could use this vertical line here to match up with this. This vertical line here, I should be pretty close. That's probably what I would do. I would start there. And then here we go. We would just start stitching. Oh, freedom. No lines to follow. But as you get closer to the mark, you might have to adjust a little bit. Okay, I was a hair below it, but fine. That's perfect. I still call that perfect. Thank you, Emerson. You hear someone outside. Okay, and then we would do the same thing, go the other direction. And really, it's just about trying to see if you can eye that 1/4 inch. And I told you before, if you're a quilter, 1/4 inch, that comes up a lot, doesn't it? There we go. That's pretty good. So work on your block and see if you can go across. Be pretty close to those lines. Now remember, I've marked them for you, so I'm not using the ruler like we talked about before, using the ruler to create lines with no marking. This is still marking, it's just not marked full lines, it's tick marked. Okay, come down to the next tick mark, stay a 1/4 inch away. I had to adjust that one. This line is not really straight, but it's close enough, right? Okay, we're going to backtrack over the perimeter, and now I'm at this mark. So now we're going to do our best at eyeing verticals. Here we go. And travel over. Next tick mark. Shoot for a 1/4 inch away from the tick mark on the bottom. You're going to find your speed increases when you're not following an exact line, probably. Same things apply, though, as far as technique with pressure, keeping the pressure closest to that hopping foot. Even though I'm leaving my hands where they are, I'm adjusting my pressure as I get to it. And I think you will understand that the more you use the rulers. Here we go. There, you've just done cross-hatching. Look at that. Okay. So practice another one. Or if you'd like, when you get to this one, and let's say you've outlined it, you could do diagonals. You could try to hit the marks going diagonally. You could try some random marks that aren't necessarily on any regular pattern. Just see if you can hit a mark somewhere going in different directions. Just trying to get that ruler to be a 1/4 inch away from that tick mark over here where my pinky is. Might have to adjust a little bit. There we go. Okay, so use those 3 blocks to do what you'd like. More cross-hatching or just dot to dot. And then I'm going to advance the quilt and I'm going to show you what we're going to do next. Okay, here we go. Now, this block, you'll notice a bunch of numbers on it. And what I want you to do is go to number 1, which is upper left corner. So it goes 1, there's a 2 down here, there's a 3, there's a 4, there's a 5, there's a 6, there's a 7, there's an 8, and then the 9. The 1 and the 9 share the top left corner. So we're doing a dot to dot. Lots of ruler work is dot to dot and continuous. That's what we're looking for without backtracking. So the first thing that we always do, why not do it again? Outline your block. Remembering all of the skills we talked about. Pressure, walking our fingers, eyeing the 1/4 inch where we think it is. Not stressing out. Okay, so I'm at number 1. Number 2's down here. So here we go. Pivoting. Emerson's whining at something out the window. Pivoting. I need my glasses. Sorry. Can't see that well without them. Oops, bumped the camera. Okay, so here we go. 1 to 2. So, I'm trying to get about a 1/4 inch away from hitting that number 2. Here we go. And if you find when you get towards it that you're not there, just pivot a little bit more. It'll still look like one continuous line because it is. Okay, 1 to 2. 3 is up here. Okay, here we go. Ooh, I was off on that. 4 is the middle of the left side. Five is the bottom right corner. You're doing good. 6 is up here at the top in the middle. Look, can you tell we're making something? 7 is bottom left. 8 is middle of the right side. And remember, 9 is where we started. It's the same as the 1. There you go. Look, you guys, we made a star. Isn't that cool? Just like with free motion, a lot of times when we're using our rollers, the fewest amount of times that we can start and stop and break thread, the better. So if it needs to be backtracked a little bit, that's good. Or like in this design, there is no backtracking at all. And there are lots of fun designs to stitch out that way. So there, we've stitched a star. You've got two more blocks over here if you're doing this one by yourself. So stitch 2 more out. I think you'll find it a lot of fun, and we're going to move on to the next one. Okay, here we go. Moving on. Guess what we have to do first? Yes, outline your block. Practice, practice, practice. Hopefully the more you do this, the more comfortable you will feel, the better coordination you will have. Okay. All right. Oh, hey, what's going on? A curve. This is the curve. It's nice and gentle. It's based on a circle. I can't remember right off the top of my head what circle this is based off of if you were to stitch it all out. But my rulers, like the Baptist fan set, it's a 3, a 5, a 7, and a 9. 3, 5, 7, 9, 11. That means if you have that set, it'll stitch out a 3-inch circle, 5, 7, 9, and 11-inch circle. If you get my curved rulers, they are even numbers. So it goes 6, 8, 10, 12, and then a 16, a 20, and a 30. And that's so I'm trying to make it so that if you get different things from me, at least you're getting a set of different sized curves. Okay, this one I can't remember what it is off the top of my head, but I will say that it matches up perfectly with this line because I designed it that way. So your Ruler Work 101 ruler and this panel kind of go hand in hand. So it's the same thing. I'm looking to see that this line is about a 1/4 inch away from my ruler. And I may have to adjust a little bit as we start, but the first thing I want you to do, start from top left and go down to bottom left. And just watch your stitching. Keep your, see, I've got my pinky on the fabric. I've got 3 fingers up here close to the hopping foot and the thumb down here. I feel like I have good control of the ruler. And most of the pressure is here, and all the same things apply. I'm directing towards the hopping foot here. I'm pushing, my machine is being pushed towards my ruler, and I'm also bringing down with the handlebar. Here we go. Okay. Stop if you want, readjust. Watch that stitching, see how it's going. I'm not having to do any readjusting here, really. Not much at all. And that is because, like I said, I designed this panel to match this ruler specifically. You're not going to be so lucky in real life. In real life, you may get close and you may have to do some readjustments, but you can find the curve that best matches what you're working on. And to be honest, you can use a much smaller curve or a much larger curve and just understand that you will be pivoting it, but you can get a nice smooth line, and you'll see that as you work more with curved rulers. Okay, now let's go from bottom left to bottom right. Doing your best to keep it nice and stable. So you see that the ruler spans all the way over to here, and obviously I can't put pressure over here yet because then it would flip up. So I'm holding it steady, but the majority of the pressure is right here near the hopping foot. Here we go. So I'm watching the thread to see how it's falling on that line. Shifting my fingers, going slow, trying to keep on the line. There, I did pretty good. I hope you're working on yours too. Now, here's something that's going to be coming up later in your future. To get this curve, I need to be on the right side of the hopping foot, and because I'm right-handed, I guide the machine with my right hand and I hold the ruler with my left, which means I'm having to put my arm over this way, and there's a camera here, so I'm at an awkward position. This is doable, but it's not as comfortable as it could be. So let me grab some curved rulers. I'm going to grab a 10 and a 12. I think this is based on the 12. No, this is the 10. Well, It's in the middle. It's like an 11. Here's what I want to show you for later. So on the Ruler Work 101, since it's a multi-purpose ruler, got a straight edge and a curved, I have to put the curve here on this side. But if I were using one of my curve it rulers, this angle, this arc right here is the same as this. So that means I could put it over on the left side of my hopping foot and stitch it out this way. And honestly, I told you this doesn't match it completely. It's not perfect, but I'm going to use it, and I'm going to show you how to use it. Okay, so I'm starting off, I'm watching where I'm stitching. Now, I can tell that I'm starting to stitch a little bit too much to the right, so I'm going to pivot this ruler slightly left. Take a little at a time. I'm going to pivot again. Now I have to pivot again. I want you to watch this as I'm slowly pivoting this ruler while I'm stitching. And I may move it. And I'm pivoting. But I'm watching it stay on the line. So you see, I didn't do great. It's not perfect. But what I was showing you is just to have the guidance without being exactly right sometimes is fine. Okay, let's go back to the 101 though. Okay, so that means I have to put it back here behind the hopping foot, which I told you sometimes you have to, and I'm okay. So here we go. I'm stitching and stitching, and I'm having to walk my fingers just like before. And I did it. Okay, so that's using the curve. You know, the great thing about this panel is once you've stitched on the lines and done your stuff, you can have fun, right? You can go in here and you could do some swirls and your free motion fills, practice that, or you could put some more ruler work in it if you want. Sorry, I just had the need to free motion for a minute. Okay. So we did our star, dot to dot. We've started introducing you to curves, and we're going to advance the panel down and we'll get to the next blocks. Okay, I advanced the quilt. Remember, practice, practice, practice. So what are we going to do? We're going to outline the block. Walkie. Remember, going away from you, that's where I tend to be looking inside the hopping foot for where I'm stitching. Okay, by the time you've gotten to this row, you should be doing the outlines pretty well. Okay, so ruler work, when you get to do more ruler work, you tend to ask yourself questions more often about, well, what's going to be my order? How am I going to get from place to place? Even though you have to do that during free motion as well too, but it seems to come up more often than ruler work, and I think that's because we are taking spaces and dividing it up and putting lines in that didn't used to have lines, that type of thing. So this is a design that we don't have to stop or break thread. And you just have to kind of follow it with your finger or your brain and figure out how it's going to go. So for this one, we're going to go curve, 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 curve. We're going to go straight, 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 and then a square, and then we're going to finish right here. That's where we're going to break thread. So we're going to start here and finish here. Let's see. If we did curves, then we went here, 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 and then outline and went here. Aha, I think we can stop there. See, there are multiple ways to do it. So let's try it this way first. I'm going to start with the curve. Remember, same as everything. Pressure and fingers, and be slow and watch where the stitch is. Adjust as needed. Okay, we got down there. This is exactly what we just did on the other blocks, so more practice for you here. Okay, we're going to this side because we don't have the true curved ruler, which has the same arc on both sides. And now we're going up to the top. Same thing here. If I had the curved set, I would probably do it from underneath because I have the same curve on the outside as is on the inside, but I'm not using that ruler right now. Okay. So I mentioned now that we're going to go in. You know what? We can do it and come back here. We're going to go in, and then we're going to do the box, and then we're going to finish these lines. So I told you there are multiple ways to do it. So the first thing I'm going to do is try to get roughly 1/4 inch from this line. Try to be parallel with that line. Okay, here we are. Now, you can use a big ruler for everything. You don't have to switch. However, if you have a bunch of them around, you could switch around. For something small like that, I love a smaller ruler. So this is the Ditch Everything. It's the little multi-purpose tool that I have. It's the mini, the Ditch Everything mini, not the full size. Okay, so go down. Now we're just doing what we always do. Straight lines, just on a small scale. And it's just nice to have a smaller ruler if you're doing small work like this, but it's not necessary. Okay. We've made our square, so now we're back to where we were with that first line. And now we're going to continue the long lines. You know what we're doing. Oops. Got a little bit off on that one. I'm having a good time. I love quilting. I'm going to have a Bob Ross moment. All the pretty little lines. I love quilting. It just makes me happy. I love fabric. I love rulers. I love making tops. I love quilting. Just love everything about it. Okay, so I've been talking. But as you can see, while I've been talking, I followed the lines and I ended back where I started from. Unclip my microphone. So, yeah, how'd you like that? That was fun, right? Okay, so you've got 2 more of those to do. If you find a different path, take a different path if you want to. This is beginning to move into what I would call more intermediate design. And when you get into designs like this, and perhaps you want to design your own little mini whole cloth or a big whole cloth or whatever, or you're breaking up space in the negative space of a quilt, you've created these lines. Now it's time to find out, well, what do you want to stand out and what do you want to recess? And that's where your fills would come in handy. And right now, I'm feeling like I want this area to have a fill. So let's say we pebble it. I'm just going to do this one section since we're not really taking a fills class. And I would probably bump up my stitches per inch because I'm stitching at 10 right now, and that doesn't make for the most beautiful circles. Okay, but look at that. Isn't that cool? You know, doing your fills and figuring out what's going to stand out and what's not. So anyway, I always have fun with that. Okay, let's travel. All right, next block in the set. Outline. You know how to do this. It's the same concept all the time. It's pressure going towards the hopping foot, your guiding hand of the machine going towards the ruler, and then moving the machine in the direction you need to go. It's all happening at the same time, and before you know it, you do it without thinking. Okay, so this is a block that I have created some tick marks for you, and you could do what you want. If you wanted to imitate what we had just done, but without the lines to follow, you could certainly do that. So that's what I'm going to do. The first thing I'm going to do is create a curved arc that goes from top left to bottom left. No line to stay on, just a mark to shoot for. Okay, so now I'm going to go from bottom left to bottom right, and I'm just trying to see that my hopping foot, I want it to end up right there at that corner. So if I get started walking, and I see that it's not going to match that, I just shift it a little bit. Make it match. Okay. There's a lot of freedom when you're not following a line, and really, you're only really following lines when you're stitching in the ditch, unless you're doing some other design that you've decided you need to follow some lines. Okay, so if we're going to imitate what we did before, I'm going to take this and go corner to that first tick mark on the left side of that little square. Okay, the next thing we did was the square itself. So I just switched rulers. I'm going smaller. I'm just eyeing this, and I'm wanting my thread to land on that line. If I had tick marks instead of a line, we would just do the same thing. Okay, we ended up there, and now we're going to go down to the bottom left corner. And now we're going to go to the middle of the little square at the bottom. Bottom right corner. And now the middle of the right side of the little square. Top right corner. Middle of the top of the little square. And back up to the top left corner. There. So I'd love for you to stitch one out just like that if possible, and then on your others do whatever it is that you'd like. Okay, we're moving right along. We just have 2 more blocks to do. This is when I would pull out a Ditch Everything or a Ditch Everything Mini. And you've got different kind of curves that might work in different kind of places. You've got straight line here and here. So I don't know, I would probably start with the Mini. But this is what I'd like to start with first, and I could go here. I could also use the edge of this Ditch Everything ruler to sort of get around here. I do want to talk to you about rulers and how you don't have to buy every single different ruler that there is. That what rulers are, they're about control. There's a curve, there's a straight line, and then there's ways of pivoting to make almost anything work out the way that you want. So let's take this 10-inch ruler. It's obviously not the same curve as this, but if I start with it, stitch a little bit, move it a little bit, watch, do you see how I'm pivoting and I'm changing the ruler, but I've stitched a pretty good line around that. I'm talking to you about just having control, and that's what I should probably tell you about. One more thing. Now I sound like a salesman. Okay, this is another ruler. If you saw the video, this is called foot control. Okay, and this has, and I didn't talk to you about this in this particular video, but the hopping foot entrapment, see how that fits over the hopping foot, and now it's snug in there. And then this is a hopping foot guide. See how that scoots up next to there? Sometimes you just need something to help you guide along, and you can pivot this to decide how you want to move it. So watch this. I'm just using this as a guide, but I'm sort of freehanding and pushing. Okay. Now, this is more advanced, but if you slide that over there and you use this as entrapment, you have to be very slow and particular with this. But let's say I'm starting. Some people have used this like mini handlebars. Do you see how I have taken my finger, my whole hand off of the handlebars, and I'm gliding this very slowly? It scares me a little bit. Really, you want one hand on your start and stop button if possible. But if I'm coming down, like I shouldn't have done it this way. This just feels more secure to have that whole support from back here. But I'm just helping guide. This is just helping guide me. Okay, some people like that, and that's all they need, is they need a little assistance. Or they use this side, and they push the direction they need to go. Push the direction I need to go. Okay, so any ruler you use, it's about control. I know that may sound odd, but what I do on applique is use whatever feels best for whichever shape. And I'm just going to try the edge of this ruler. Okay, I got a little off there, but that's okay. And let's say that I want to go up this way. Well, here's a curve. It could be a good start. Then I have to adjust it. So, look, I got way off. But what happens in the class during this part, it's really about slowing down and experimenting on this applique. And finding different tools and seeing what becomes comfortable to you. But basically, I have you outline these shapes. And we could use any combination of curves that you have. Let's go back to this. So it's more advanced, but I wanted you to have a little taste of it because this is an introduction to ruler work, and ruler work is going to come up on applique quilts if you're going to stitch in the ditch. Okay, I didn't do the leaves, but I did the little flowers. And then let's go to something with straight edges. And I've given you 3 sets of each applique. So let's go to what we're used to on this. On this one, I didn't make it a point for you to do non-stop quilting, really this was about the shape. The shapes of the applique. Or piecing. This could represent a piece block, which I think that's what I designed it for. But if I were to do this one without stopping, I probably would have started here and created my outline, and then I would have, see, here's where I just like to work with a smaller one. I would outline this entire shape. So these are 45-degree angles, which, see this ruler, it has the 45-degree angles on it, which almost all of them do. Use those angles and line them up with things. When you're not specifically looking at where the stitching is going, you'll get pretty good results just by lining up the correct angles. Here, that's on the 45. But more times than not, you're going to be looking at the piecing and the shape and just doing your best to ditch it. Stay as close to it as you can. It's when you're creating your own shapes and your own designs that you're going to use the lines a lot more. Not saying you're not going to use them for this, but I like when you get to practice on a small scale like this. And if you've never used rulers before and you started at the top of this panel and you got down to here, you've done a lot, actually. And that's for the beginner class. Okay, now I noticed if I went here, I would have closed myself off. So if I'm working for continuous, I'm going to do this inside square on point. And the Ditch Everything Mini has needle stop, as you can see. So if I try to put that this edge right here a 1/4 inch away from that corner, the ruler will just stop me from quilting. I went 1 stitch over. Okay, oops, I wasn't paying attention, but it's close. Okay, now I've done it. Okay, so now we've stitched around the whole thing. We've stitched in the ditch for all of those shapes. And of course you could fill things in as you want. Okay, that is the bottom of the panel. All right, so lots of blocks to play with and get used to your rulers. If nothing else, if you don't have a ruler at all, this is, like I said, this is what we use with the class, just because it's one ruler, it has a curve and it has a straight edge. This has some of the same things too, but if I were going to tell you what you should get first, this, I really like this for small work, and it has lots of different functions. I think I told you the 3x12 I couldn't live without. I use this more than anything. So these three, and then I would start getting curves as you build up your your arsenal. So lots of curves, and then if you like certain things, like the Baptist fans are probably my biggest selling ruler, and it's just a set. Go watch that video if you want a set of how to stitch out Baptist fans with rulers. Okay, all right, that's it for this class. I wish I would have been teaching this to you in person, and if you have any questions, let me know. Okay, next up, I think I'm going to do a custom quilt. I might show you some of that quilting. And I hope you all are safe and happy and healthy, and I will see you next time. Bye.